on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. I'm your host, Mangone. I'm here with Big T. I'm here with JT Hayes. We got to go to Big T first, though. We got the Showdown stuff starting up for the Super Bowl. It's a great week, Big T. How's it going over there, man?
Yeah, it was fun. It was the first Super Bowl show I've done this week of many. I'm sure we're going to do a bunch of content for the Super Bowl. Got together with my old pal, The Chop. We've done lots of Showdown shows, put content on both the sites. So it was a fun show to do. I'm looking forward to diving more into the game and some NBA. It should be a good week. Let's win some cheese all week. Coming off last night, where the Nuggets game. I not to toke my own horn, but I've said that every show. I know you guys have heard it, that with COVID, you got to be a little alarmed with that late game canceling like that. And it finally happened. The problem is it was on a Nuggets slate, so I didn't fade it.
And the other problem was it wasn't one of those slates where you could pivot to anything, right? Where people.
Well, that was my point, though. Like, that's why I think sometimes you should fade that late game if there is no pivots, because once it's done, it's done. Like, you got nowhere to go.
Yeah, and like once it's done, right? At 11 o'clock, AP sitting there with 50K, those stacks in his pocket. Yeah, so AP had a nice little hit. If you guys didn't see, his Malik Monk call did really well. Some other members, I know Hector in the chat, he had a nice little, the ROI get right. He turned 60.
What did Hector get? Hector, the MMA Hector?
Yeah, he turned $60 into like 1.8K, which, the screenshot guys can't get mad about that one, right? They can't.
Those are the best screenshots, honestly. The ones where it's like less than 100 into multiple thousands, those are the best screenshots. I like those better than any.
Yeah, those are definitely fun. And sometimes whenever I take a slate off, I still put one in there just in case I'm the guy that hits the random, 15.
That's one of my favorite things to do, honestly. Like, if you want a day off, like literally play for something small and just put the basic, take a chance on something, just have fun with it.
Yep, exactly. And we have to have fun with the Super Bowl around the corner. For betting, you got to have fun too, placing those bets. JT Hayes, we'll head on over to you. This is a fun NBA slate, but we got to get some NFL takes from you here. Like, what are you thinking with this Super Bowl right here around the corner?
If somebody asked me a couple of nights ago, they said, the Bucs can't win, can they? And I said, absolutely they can win. Tom Brady, I mean, look at poor Bill Belichick, went to the Super Bowl all these years with all those terrible players around Brady. Brady leaves, goes to this Bucs team that's coached by a guy who couldn't string 7, 8 wins together for all his years as a coach, and boom, they're in the Super Bowl. So I think it's going to be a good game. I haven't dove into all the stats yet, but I certainly will, because I'll be taking a look at some of those Showdown, some of the contests on Sunday. And then you guys talked about it. Congrats to our guy AP, of course, big 50K hit last night. King of Queens, another guy who's been with us a long time, almost 20K last night. So JM, who's one of the guys that pops in and out, took down second in the 888. So content's been good. Members have been sharp and looking to roll and continue it again tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait to roll, and excited for tonight. I really like this slate. I think it's great. We're getting back to like less of like the 13 games and then 2 gamers. I think tomorrow we might have a 10 game, but 6 games is a nice little sweet spot to be at. Big T, do you like this slate as much as me? Because I'm a huge fan of it.
6 is my favorite. I think I've said it. Like 4 to like 6 or 7 is my sweet spot. When you start getting 10, 12 games, they're fine. Like, I'm fine with it, but it's just, it feels like I don't do as good on those ones because one guy goes off and you don't have him. It's different depending on the slate. But I love these 6-game slates. Tonight's a good slate too, because just the way it shapes up as we go through these games, you'll see. But there's not like any dead clear spots like sometimes there are, but there are a lot of good spots where we can focus on. And some of the chalk value it's one of those nights where I'm not going to like it as much as other people. So I think there's some advantage there in tournaments.
Yep, I'm excited to break it all down. Before we kind of go into that and talk about it, I do want to say, hey, guys, please hit that like, hit that subscribe on the video. It helps us out a ton. And once we get some more people in here, we'll pick a number for the FedEx t-shirts. Tony, if the shirt's gone out, I've had some people complaining about shirts. Give them the update on it because the people need to know.
I mean, I feel like I'm just making excuses when the people keep asking, but we're legitimately waiting for these larges to arrive. I could go to FedEx and ship everything but the larges, but then there are people with the larges say, well, where's this and that? I could just send everyone that ordered a large an extra large, but then they're going to get it and they're going to whine about that. So I've just been waiting, holding out. Hopefully the larges arrive soon. I'm planning to ship next week after the Super Bowl. Like, I got to get these out. The list is like 50 deep now, like 50 winners. There's a lot of people wanting their gear. I got to get it to them.
Yeah, got to get them that gear. And after they ship all the Showdown money, right, they'll have their gear to wear the week later. Should be a good
It's like that homework too. Like back when you were in school, like the later you let it get to the due date, like you just it has more and more stress. The list just keeps getting longer. It's going to be like a full project getting all that stuff out.
Well, if you want to make Big T have a full project this week, hit that like on the video, and then we'll send them off to FedEx for you guys. JT, give me your slate breakdown. Like, are you liking this? You were on the First Look pod with Draft Cheat, so I'm sure you've dove into this one for a while now. Break it down for me. What are you thinking of this NBA slate?
Yeah, it's interesting because you've got a lot of the best players in the NBA on this slate, and I think honestly some of them are just unplayable based on the usage and the health of the teams. And then you have a couple of spots that I think I'm just going to completely avoid. I think there's one that I was looking at earlier, that Detroit-Utah game where the prices are way down, but it's just a huge spread. And Utah's coming off an absolute dusting by Denver in Denver. And I expect them to obviously play much better at home. They've really been dominant at home. So, and then you've got a late night, the late night game between Boston and Golden State that I can see being fairly close, although neither of those spots has been great to chase points, but you do have some value and some interesting opportunity there. But I think the big way that you're going to have to decide, the big decision on this slate is, how many of these 9-10 guys are you going to try and fit in your lineup? And are you going to take on that risk of some of these 3-2, 3-5, even 4K guys that, man, like Tony said, some of these guys, okay, I'm all right with. Other guys, I think their spots are a bit different, and I don't know if they're going to get the same type of run and production tonight. So I think it's a little tricky in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you bring up, and it kind of looks like yesterday. Now, I know a game got canceled, right? So there were a lot of dead lineups, and it was chalky, but you saw someone win all the money last night with a JaMychal Green play, with it getting a 0. Right. And I think part of that was obviously that game was pretty chalky, Jokic, Barton.
It was basically impossible to completely fade that game on FanDuel. Are you talking, was it FanDuel?
No, DraftKings.
On DK, someone won with a 0?
Yep. JaMychal Green was a 0. And I think part of the reason why was so De'Aaron Fox, right? He was very low owned and he had 61 fantasy points. I could pull up the winning lineup if you want to talk about it a little bit, Tony.
That always interests me because it happens in baseball when a pitcher gets negative. I've seen it. It happens in football when a guy gets you 40 yards. It happens all the time. It just shows you. I mean, the one night, you can use baseball for example with me and JT. The one night I won 40K, he won 100K, and I swear we had one dude the same on our team. It was completely different routes, and it happens all the time in the NBA. You could have a couple guys, last night it was Fox and who was the other dude? Chris Paul. Both of those guys were pretty low owned, and you could easily have completely different builds based on who goes off. That's what I'm always saying, and what tilts me, because I would love to hang out and chat all night because I'm usually watching the games, just hanging out anyways, but I legitimately cannot handle the tilt. It ruins my night. And this is why, if one dude goes off, it's oh, you can't win without Eric Paschall because he's got 14 in the first quarter. No, there's tons of you're never dead until it's over. Yeah, when you get a COVID game and you got Jokic, you're done. Then you can shut the laptop and you can move on. But for the most part, you're never dead until it's over. So the tilt always gets to me.
I was saying last night, I was kind of the opposite. I had exposure to that game too, but as soon as that news broke, I was on the phone. I was talking to my father who was up in New York, making sure he didn't have a heart attack trying to shovel a foot of snow by himself. And so we're talking, I get off the phone and I see the notifications come in and I'm like, oh, that's nice. The game's canceled. And I was like, you know what? Let me go see the wild overreaction in chat. just to for a few minutes of entertainment. And I got to give them some credit. There was a bit of a freak out of will they refund, will they whatever. But as soon as DraftKings put out that statement, they all kind of chilled out. And then we got the end of the night celebration and we got everybody feeling good for the guys who won. So it was a good night in our Discord last night. Actually, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
It's funny too. Like what I think the Discord is slowly getting better with it. There's still a few major violators, but the thing is, when everybody's got the good mojo, like last night, AP was the most positive of anybody in there from the beginning too. It's easy to say after he won. Sure, that's easy. Of course he's going to be happy, but it was all night. Right away, he said he's going to get a drink. He was rooting on his boy, our boy from
Malik Monk hit 6 3-pointers in the first 3 minutes he was on the court. I mean, I had to feel good about that.
Dude, AP was in there at like 7:30 going bonk. Like he was firing. I saw it.
Yeah. Who doesn't believe in mojo? Like I believe in that stuff. You got that good mojo, it works. Believe me.
Yeah, so that was definitely something. I've been working on that with the Discord chat too, Big T. Like, whenever I see someone say like, "Oh, this guy was terrible," then later on he's got the flame next to him. I just post the old take and then the new take, right? The old take's exposed. So I've been trying to do that.
It's tilting that they like do it. Most of them do it like to reverse jinx it. Like, stop trying to reverse jinx it like that. No, stop doing that.
But Tony, I got the lineup for you. So here we go. It was LaMelo Ball, Malik Monk, Jimmy Butler, who got 40.2 or 50.25 at 4.3% owned, JaMychal Green at the power forward spot, Jared Allen, who was 80% owned and dropped the bomb, right? 58, you needed him. Melton, who was 1.6%, that was the big one, 40.75 fantasy points. Julius Randle, who got his normal 50 against the Bulls, and then De'Aaron Fox, 7% owned for 63 and shipped 100K. I mean, that's like the biggest GPP.
And there's nothing in that lineup that is just totally insane either. So, like, it just shows you it doesn't matter. I mean, I know a game got canceled and a lot of ownership, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get there. Got there. Everyone dealt with the same thing.
Yep, I'm with you. It was an awesome time yesterday. AP got his nice shipper. It was a fun time, but let's dive in and really talk about this slate because I'm super excited. I think there's so many different ways you can go. And the first game, typically, I don't think we would love this game on this kind of slate, but we have massive news with that Magic team. Aaron Gordon got ruled out, right? The prices aren't adjusted on some of these guys, and there are some value plays in this game. And I'm going to go to Big T first because he said, I don't like a lot of the value on this slate. And there is some popular value here. I don't know if this is the one you're talking about. We got Vucevic here. We got Gary Clark as a cheap option. Big T, let me know about the Magic here.
Yeah, I mean, you have to like the Magic. You take it. First of all, I'm so happy Gordon, not that he's hurt. Again, we don't root for that. But, man, he was killing me on FanDuel at that price point. So just that he's out of there, at least I don't have to think about him for a while because I kept playing him. And it just opens up so much for this team. They have so much available in the middle. I mean, you got Ross, you got Fournier. Fournier looks expensive, but you just look at the scoring. Like, where is the scoring going to come from? It almost has to be Fournier. He feels like a high floor, decent ceiling tonight, even in this spot. Toronto hasn't been the same defense we've seen. Like they've struggled a lot with no center in there. They've got carved a little bit. So I think, honestly, almost everyone from Orlando is in play. Kim Birch gets a big boost at 4,200. Gary Clark will obviously be the chalk. I mean, he's 3,300 on DK. Is he 35 on FanDuel? 35 on FanDuel. So he's definitely going to be, I mean, just because it's the early game too, he's going to be 40% owned or something, I bet, just because of that price. And you need the value with all these studs. I can't say I disagree with it, though. I mean, he's 3,300. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. If you're giving me – I don't care how bad the guy is. If you're giving me 30-plus minutes at almost min-price on a team that doesn't have any scoring, really, I'll take my chances, even though he's chalky. This is kind of a spot where I have to go to. And Vooch has struggled a little bit lately, but who's going to guard him? Like, they don't have anyone to guard him. He's going to eat tonight in this spot. And then you go to Toronto, same thing we say every day. These guys are in play. They're all in the 7Ks on DK. They are slightly more expensive, at least Van Vliet and Pascal on DK. But FanDuel, like, you got Lowry 70 or DK. I mean, I keep getting it backwards. DK, Lowry 73, Van Vliet 74, Pascal 77. I mean, those are tasty price points for me in this first game on a 6-game slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Gary Clark in this spot. I think he's just too cheap of a value. Vucevic is just underpriced at 8.2K. Before we head on over to JT, guys, please hit that like and hit that subscribe on the video. We only got 96 of you have hit the like, and we're almost at 400 people watching. JT, how hurtful is that right now?
I mean, we do this every show, Mango, and it's crazy. I mean, we should open with almost an advisory, right? That says we're not going to start until we have 100 likes. I mean, that's the way this is heading. It's disturbing that we have to keep saying the same thing over again.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think we got the good mojo going on here. I feel good about this show, and we might have to hold back the workbench play if we're not getting that going. I might pull a hoop here. So we'll have to see as the show goes on. Guys, please hit the like and subscribe. But JT, let's go on over to you. Magic, all this value, right? Evan Fournier is one guy that Big T brought up, which I think was a great point. And I think shooting guard is a bit shallow on this slate. So he can make some sense, but he is 6.3K over on DraftKings, or you can go down to Terrence Ross, who's 5.3K, who's about $1,000 cheaper. So how are you handling those two guys at a weak position?
Yeah, I think definitely Vucevic at 8.2 on DraftKings is, and this is what I was talking about. It comes down to roster construction, Howie, because if you want to play him, you're probably not going to be playing two of those guys from either the Brooklyn game or the Portland game. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. I guess we expect that Gary Clark is going to start. I wish Birch was power forward eligible on DraftKings, but he's not. He's center only, so that makes it a little bit tougher if you want to play Vuk. I don't know that I want to play the two centers on the same team in that game because there's some other areas where I think that are interesting tonight. So I agree. On the Toronto side now, it looks like Powell is probable. So you've got a team that's fully healthy. I do like Van Vliet a little bit coming off a game where he shot really poorly. Don't expect that to happen again. But other than that, I don't know how much interest I'm going to end up having in that Toronto team because I see this as a spot where they should win this game.
Yeah, Big T, let's go and talk about the Raptors with you. So they got Powell back, right? Is Powell going to be an interesting option that you can go to? No OG Anunoby in this game still, so that opens up some spots. And I heard you on the show the other day. You basically said, I like Ross and the Raptors because I know the minutes are there. Are you okay with that, or are the prices?
Yeah, I mean, Powell is going to play a bunch. He's coming off an injury, though. And, man, that price tag is still sticker shock to me. I mean, 6,400 just feels crazy. I mean, if you guaranteed me he was going to play 40 minutes again, he could definitely be in play, but I don't see it. I think he's too expensive, especially coming off sitting out the last couple games. I don't think you can go there today. And really the price tag is not that, especially on DK. I mean, it's only an extra 1,000 for the good three guys. So I don't know. I'd find the 1,000. I don't have Powell in my player pool today.
All right, JT, any Raptors that you're really excited about here? I think I see this as mainly getting exposure to the Magic. I don't know if I want to run it back with any Raptors, maybe a Siakam, maybe a Van Vliet, but I'm not too excited about these guys.
No, I started playing around with lineups and I had Van Vliet in there just because of the fact that he was so bad shooting last game. And that's really the only game in the last 3 seasons that he's had that was bad against Orlando. But it makes it difficult if you want to get Vucevic, if you want to get one guy from the Brooklyn game and one guy from the Portland game, or 2 from each of those games. It makes it really difficult if you're going to start paying for a Van Vliet or even a Fournier, to be honest. I mean, 40 in that 6K range makes it difficult the way that I want to build my roster. So for me, I think it's Vuk and some of the value on Orlando. And I don't know that I'll have much other than maybe a couple of Van Vliet lineups on Toronto.
All right, well, let's go on to the next game. And there's a lot to talk about in this game. It's got a 240 total, right? It's the Clippers and the Brooklyn Nets. And I'm excited to talk about this one because Big T, I got to sell you on a play. I was telling our producer Simon before, I want to sell you on a guy. And this is a 240 total that's not going to get as much exposure as you think, right? No one wants to really roster all these Nets and play the Nets roulette. No one really wants to play too many of these Clippers either, I feel like. Everyone wants to gravitate towards Washington and Portland and all the different value plays, right? Boston and the Warriors. But you see a guy like Paul George, who is at the shooting guard position on DraftKings. And I don't think the shooting guard position is the greatest position today. You can go and spend up for him at 8.9K in a game where the Clippers are, I think they're underdogs. Either way, it's a 1-point spread, right? And Paul George has been phenomenal this year. If it's going to be a competitive game with all these stars coming out, I think Paul George at 8.9K is a really great way to get different for a guy that's going to be in the single digits against the team that's historically one of the worst defenses we've seen of all time. Am I crazy to want to pay up for Paul George in tournaments?
No, I mean, Paul George and Kawhi are two of my favorite plays on the slate. You look at the Nets numbers, I mean, their defense is historically bad since these three got together. No one's going to play Kawhi or Paul George. Obviously, Paul George price is a little bit cheaper here. What is their let me pull it up.
It's like a $300 difference on DraftKings. I think it's 8,992.
Yep, 8,992.
And 1,200 on so not a ton difference on DK, but FanDuel 1,200 difference. Either way, I like both of them, and I honestly think you can use both of them together. Their prices are a decent discount on the other stars on the slate, what I consider the other stars. I mean, these Brooklyn guys, I mean, you got Durant, what, 2K or so more expensive on FanDuel, 1,000 more expensive on DK. That's too much. There's 3 stars on Brooklyn, only 2 on the Clippers, and the Clippers are a lot more short-handed than people think too, with obviously Beverly out. These guys, none of these other guys have crazy usage. Ibaka, Batum, Reggie Jackson, they don't seem to play Sweet Lou all that much with them. There's just not that much usage out there. So I love both of those guys. I'm going to have a ton of both of those guys. And the issue for me, man, Sweet Lou's staring at me again. I mean, 4,500. He's just killing me because I want to play him. I want to make it happen. 4,500 against the worst defense in basketball in a 240 total where he's the clear third best scorer on this team. Man, somebody talked me out of it. JT talked me out of Sweet Lou.
He's just, so it depends for me. I think if Batum is out, then you can definitely take a look and look at Lou. If Batum is in, Batum is going to get 28, 30 minutes, and Lou is going to be in that 17 to 20 range. Now, against the Brooklyn second unit, he could go nuts against that second unit, and he's 4 or 5 on DraftKings. It's just, I don't know what the dynamic is there with Ty Lue, but he's just not getting nearly the run. I think the only games that he's really gotten a bigger amount of minutes here are the games in which they were absolute blowouts one way or the other. So for me, I agree with you though. I think, people are salivating over this Portland-Washington game because both those teams don't play defense. And they're forgetting that Brooklyn is actually the worst defense in the NBA since James Harden joined that team. They don't play any defense at all, whereas the Clippers do. So I like that side on the Clippers. And I'm trying to actually decide, can I play Serge Ibaka in what has been just a crazy matchup for centers? It continues to be that way. The Nets have given up 15 games of 40 DraftKings points or more to centers already this year. And I think that includes a couple of games where the backup actually got that much as well. But the problem is Ibaka doesn't really play big minutes. So I think Kawhi and PG and even maybe Reggie Jackson at a low price.
You have no Pat Beverly there, so that helps the guards a little bit. Tony, the only reason I can get sold more on Lou Williams is I really think shooting guard is terrible today. I don't think it's a great position. I mean, sure, you could spend up on some of these guys like Beal and George, but like there's other guys you want to spend up on in these other games. You want to spend on Vucevic. You want to spend on Dame, Westbrook. There's tons of different options that you can spend your money on today. And small forward's not the greatest either. So that's another great case to be made for a guy like a Kawhi Leonard. So that would be my selling point on a Lou Williams against this really, really, really terrible defense. I love the JT call with Serge Ibaka. It is a really good matchup for him to destroy. What do you think of that as like more of like a mid-tier guy that maybe people won't go to today, Big T? Because I think it's going to be a day where we're going more stars and scrubs.
Yeah, I like Serge. His price is a little hurtful at 6K and 6,400. But he's got upside. They don't have dudes. I look at this roster. Marcus Morris looks like he's still getting back in shape a little bit. He just doesn't look right. Kennard, I can't believe Kennard. Kennard's contract might be worse than Jared Goff's contract. Like, it's dollar per dollar. Whoo, Kennard. How in the world did they give him that much money? But Zubac, they just don't. I don't like this roster outside of a couple guys. So Serge, especially if Batum is out. I know Batum and Serge don't play the same position, but it just clears up more room. It just clears up a more secure role. I like it. I like the Serge call. I want Clippers guys. I want Clippers guys bad. And the problem is I don't want to play Reggie Jackson. I don't think Reggie Jackson correlates all that well with Kawhi and Paul George on the floor. I like Sweet Lou because he can play a little bit of that second unit, like JT said, where, yeah, maybe he only plays 20 to 22 minutes, but maybe he just gets hot. One of these games, Lou is going to get hot because he hasn't played a ton of minutes. And when he plays, he's like rattling shots and doing all the things where if it was just a couple shots fall, he could get hot. It just hasn't happened for him yet. Tonight could be that night at 4,500. If he gets you 35 or something, you're going to be very happy. I want Clippers guys. Brooklyn is not playing defense right now. High total, low spread. I don't really like the Brooklyn side, so the Clippers are where I'm going. I like the Serge call a lot.
Yeah, let me go over back to you, JT. So, like Big T talked about playing Kawhi and Paul George together. Do you feel like you have to play one of these Nets ran back if the game goes absolutely nuts? Do you think one of Kyrie, Kevin Durant, or Harden pays off their price? I don't think you need to do it on this slate, but wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I don't look, it's possible, right? But with the three of them splitting that usage, first of all, let's just forget about everybody else on the Nets, right? We're not going to play DeAndre Jordan. We're not going to play Joe Harris. We're not going to play Jeff Green, any of those guys, right? At least that's the way I'm going. This is where the usage is going to be basically centered around those three guys. And then you've got, I think it's 8-8 for Kyrie, 10-1 for Durant, and 10. I'm not playing 11K for Harden coming off of a couple of smash spots when a couple of guys were out in a really soft matchup. So I'm just not interested. I just agree with Tony 100% that the Clippers are what you want here in this matchup. I think the game stays close because the Nets will score, but it'll be those three guys taking a third of the production. So it's just there's the Clips are in a better spot. Those two guys that we talked about, even Ibaka. And then we're going to talk about the Portland-Washington game. If you have another spot where you're going to pay 9 to 10K, you've got a couple of guys there that are going to have to score if that game's going to, be true to that spread. So I don't see any reason to play any net tonight.
Yeah, and Big T, I'm going to go back to you real quick. Sean V has something in chat. He says, I don't like playing those two stud Clippers when they're both healthy. Ceiling just not there at those prices. Sounded like you disagreed. Like maybe Sean V showed up late, but like this is a different situation. This is the worst defensive team of all time right now. This unit, like
JT brings up a good point too, though. They're going to score. Like they're going to have to. Kawhi and Paul George are going to have to score points. I mean, the Nets just played a 147, 144 game. If they've ever had upside, it's here. And every slate is different. You don't need 70 from Kawhi and Paul George. If both of these guys are in the 50s, you're massive. Right now, like chalk me up for them. If they both get in the 50s tonight, sign me up. I'll let someone try to beat me. Yeah, someone might outscore me. Maybe someone goes 60, 70. Dame goes crazy. Someone else goes crazy. Maybe they do get 60 or 70. I'll take my chances, though, with 50 plus from both of these guys. That's upside to me.
Yep, and Paul George is 8,400 over on FanDuel. And again, like shooting guard and small forward, it's not the best today. I mean, there's some guys we could talk about, but it's not this like loaded position. If you could sign me up for that 50 or even a 45, I think I'd be in still on those guys there. Let's move on over to the next game. But before we do that, let's pick a number, Big T, for that swag giveaway, right? We're at 179 likes. We got 456 people watching right now. We're not getting out ratioed as much as we thought we were, but how are we looking, Big T? What number do you want to get to give away some swag?
Yeah, we're gonna get over 500 watching here soon, so we got to go 250. I mean, if we get to 250, that's been the number we've used on a lot of these shows too. 250 likes, swag going out in that next shipment, hopefully early next week.
Yeah, and just let me make one more point. Sean V said that those guys don't have upside. They do. I think it was a game against Utah a couple of weeks ago that was really close. And I think both Kawhi and PG went for somewhere in the 55 range. I don't know if it was Utah, but it was a game where it was really close. In a close game, these guys are going to have the ball in their hands all the time. Paul George at 8,400 on FanDuel, it's a lock. It's a lock. You shouldn't have a lineup without him, I don't think.
Yeah, and Sean V, he said, and this comparison, Sean V, I mean, this just ain't it, man. He said, everyone said that about the T-Wolves a week ago when the Magic played them and the Magic scored 88. Like, Sean V, like, this is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. This ain't Vucevic and, like, Aaron Gordon.
What I always say is just don't play them then. If you don't think they have upside, don't play them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if people play them, then you should feel like the rake is being paid. But I think it's a totally different situation. But, yes, anything can happen. Weird things can go on. But yeah, that's
I think
all
you can run it back with Kyrie, by the way, too, because KD's going to take a back seat a little bit with either Kawhi or Paul George guarding him. He's not going to be aggressive against those guys. He's just not. Kyrie, however, is going to have Reggie Jackson and Sweet Lou on him. I know Harden is similar. He'll have a good matchup too, but he's way more expensive than Kyrie. They're not the same price. Kyrie is somewhat cheap on DK. He's only what, 8,800?
Yep, he's
8,800. Like, that is way cheaper than what is Harden?
Harden is 10-9, but he is shooting guard, right? But yeah,
that's fine. I'm still though 2,100. Like, so you're telling me I can get Kyrie for that much cheaper when I think his usage is going to be what? This is a Kyrie game tonight. He could easily be your run back. I like it. I mean, no one's going to play Kyrie tonight. Literally no one, and that's when I want Kyrie because I don't care what the situation is. If he gets hot, he doesn't care who he's playing with. I guarantee he thinks he's the best player on the floor tonight. He doesn't care. It could be anyone out there with him, and he's not scared. So I like Kyrie.
Yeah, and if you looked at Kyrie's game logs, like even at that price, he still has done fine, even though he hasn't been like, the alpha every single game. And hey, he's a nice little pivot off of Russell Westbrook, who's going to be probably chalkier, right? Damian Lillard, like those guys are going to get jammed in the lineups. People want to play Portland and Washington. Before we kind of get to Portland and Washington, let's talk Memphis and Indiana and get that one out of the way. JT, I'll kick it off with you first. We got a guy like Sabonis who is getting cheaper against the Memphis team that you can exploit inside. 8.7K for Domantas Sabonis. I think he's kind of intriguing. Break down the Indiana side for me.
Yeah, so the problem for me here is that they're, fully healthy. Yes, the prices have come down. Sabonis at that price when he was almost 10K a couple of weeks ago when they were missing guys, obviously it's a decent price for him, but I think it's probably right in this matchup. Brogdon is maybe the guy at 7.9 that's a little bit underpriced that I could see maybe Brogdon a little bit tonight. And then you've got now with Lamb and Holiday starting, the forward position here is a position where people have been able to attack this Memphis team. We saw it with Keldon Johnson last night. The problem is it's not like there's one guy that's going to play 35 or 36 minutes. You've got Lamb and Holiday, then you've got McDermott, who now is coming off the bench. And it just seems a little bit too full on a slate where we have some clearer spots. So that's kind of where I'm looking at on Indiana. Probably not going to have a lot of Sabonis just because of the way that I like some of these other centers and the value at power forward, and maybe a little bit of Brogdon.
Yeah, Brogdon's been great. It's still crazy that they got rid of him from the Bucks. They should have really locked him up. He's been so good for that team. Big T, talk to me about some Malcolm Brogdon at 7.9K. Is he someone that you can have some interest in with all these spend-up guards today?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you look at these prices on Sabonis and Brogdon, they're fine, but Memphis, I mean, I think they're on a 7-game win streak or whatever. Since Ja's come back, they've been really good. They were good at the end of last year. It's just a tough spot on this slate. You have 241 totals with stars in those games. It's very hard to click the name Sabonis and Brogdon on slates like that, where especially Brogdon, like he's a guy that I don't think necessarily has a huge ceiling in this spot. I do think he'll get you low 40s, which is good. But on this slate with these super high totals, one of these two games is for sure just going to go totally nuclear. It's hard to click these names. It is. I don't think I'll have basically anything from Indiana.
Well, how about the Memphis side? I mean, we got DeAndre Melton at 4.5K, just went for 40 fantasy points, right? Are you chasing that? Do you think he's going to be too high owned? Is he popping in the models? What do you think of a guy like Melton and some of these other value plays like Tillman?
Yeah, I mean, he not only did he go for 40 last game, but he went for 35 the game before against the same team. He's a good price for sure, and you have to take notice because we need some value on this slate to make everything work, and he's got upside. I mean, you have to take notice. Anybody 4,500 going for back-to-back 40, 35 and 40, you just have to take note. I don't know how much I necessarily like him just because I want Melton when he's low owned. I don't want Melton when he's 25, 30% owned. He's just one of those guys that I feel like lets you down more times than not in this spot. And I don't like the game environment all that much, honestly. I'd rather go to some cheaper pieces in one of these higher totals or the Orlando plays. There's a lot of places you can go tonight. I don't think it's going to be Memphis, Indiana for me.
All right, JT, Memphis value. Any interest? Again, like kind of what I said to Big T, like Melton is this guy that people I think are just going to see the game logs and just plug right in. What are you doing with him, and what are you doing with all these other Grizzly options?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, how tilting was it to see Memphis's second unit just run all over San Antonio when we had Michael Porter Jr. in the same spot last week and he got 19 minutes? I mean, I was crying. You want the definition of hurtful. I mean, Mike Malone, Jesus. But what I would say here is that those two games were against San Antonio, and San Antonio's second unit is absolute garbage, and everybody scores points on them. You're now going up to play Indiana, which is not the same matchup whatsoever. Melton's still a good price. He's probably going to be a lot higher on tonight, I think, because like Tony said, people are going to want to get three of the guys from either the Portland, Washington game and Vuk, or, people like us are going to look and say, we want some exposure to that Brooklyn game. So I think he's going to be highly owned. I think on a back-to-back, those rotations are going to be even more unpredictable because he did play, I think he played close to 30 minutes last night. So I don't know how much Memphis I'm going to have. I think there are some other spots that I'll look at that aren't back-to-backs where I feel a little bit more solid about how many minutes a guy might get. For instance, those starters in Orlando, I think, are in a much better spot at cheaper prices when I know that they're going to have to play 30 minutes, right? Whereas, Melton could play 18 minutes tonight.
Yeah, definitely could happen. Guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe first. We almost got the 500 watching. We need to get 250 likes to give out some gear. Also, if you haven't checked out all the stuff we have at Run Pure Sports, Big T, why don't you tell the people about all the Showdown stuff and all the NFL stuff we got going on for this week? Because you're going to be a part of a ton of it.
Yeah, I mean, we got stuff rolling out basically every day. We're rolling all kinds of different shows. I would just check them out because I think we're going to give a good variety too, where we have a bunch of different opinions on there. Even I'm sure DC on the podcast at night is going to break some stuff down with the Super Bowl too. So, I mean, we're going to come at you from all angles. We're going to give tournament stuff, cash stuff, literally something every day is rolling out. Starting today, we did two shows today, the bets and DFS one that they did, and then the one I did with Chop. So we had two come out today, one or two every other day too, the rest of the week. Tons of content that you can watch. I don't think we're doing anything Saturday or Sunday, so everyone could rewatch and watch them then. But yeah, exciting stuff for the Super Bowl. I think we're going to have you very well covered as far as the Super Bowl.
Yep, we got my DFS and bet show with the bet side and Holden. That was on the YouTube channel, so you can check that out after this show or any other time. And Big T did the premium show with Head Chopper. Check that out. You got to sign up. Use the code WORKBENCH21 to get 25% off your payment. And another thing we have going on, Rubio told me about, Holden and Rubio and Title on the Young Guys pod. They made a little wager. I don't know if you guys saw this. And whoever lost had to eat the world's hottest chip. And we're finally going to be able to watch Holden on a live stream eat the hottest chip and suffer through the pain. JT, are you going to be there to watch Holden suffer while eating that chip?
I hadn't heard about this, but anytime I can get an opportunity to see Holden perform, I have to take advantage of it. So count me in, no matter where it is or what time, I'll be there.
It's 9:00, I believe, tomorrow night. That's what Rubio told me. Big T, can you confirm about this? Have you heard about this challenge? Because Holden eating the world's hottest chip, that's going to be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I got to definitely tune in for that. I don't know what exact time. I know Rubio sent me a message earlier wanting me to tune in. Yeah, 10 p.m. Wednesday.
9 p.m.
Yeah. I mean, that's what so yeah, I mean, tuning in. I know Rubio was a little torn on the time, but if it's 9 p.m., that's when I'll be watching it.
Yep, I'll be there too. Should be a fun time, so check that out. Listen, like everyone's been waiting. The chat's been saying like it's basically a 2-game slate, like because there's a game on this slate that you have to love, right? There's so much to talk about in this game. We got the Trailblazers. We have the Washington Wizards. We got another 240 total. And yeah, it's going to be a close one, right? The Wizards, they are 2.5-point favorites because the Blazers are just terrible on defense. I mean, they're absolutely awful. We will talk about the Blazers first. We got Enes Kanter, who his usage has been absolutely phenomenal. He gets to go against Washington where he should crush. Nasir Little had a really big game yesterday at 3.1K. I still think he's okay, but he did get a lot of blowout run. Keep that in mind. So that whole massive 47 points, that wasn't all because of him playing with the starters. He got a lot of blowout run and did well there. And then Mr. Damien Lillard, right? He's in a really good spot. He's going against Westbrook, who he doesn't like. He's going against the Washington backcourt, which there's a video of him on the internet I tweeted out that basically said he was asked by a beat reporter a question, and he said, "Didn't you say that Washington backcourt was better than me?" Like Damian Lillard with a team that plays no defense and all the revenge in the world. JT, is he going to be the Eiffel Tower play, Mr. Damian Lillard?
Not a 10-7 in his ownership. He's a great play. Don't get me wrong, but for the Eiffel Tower, we like to look for something just like what it is, right? A little bit off the beaten path, a little bit that, something that you have to go and look for, in a particular place. So we want to find some lower ownership there, but there's no question. I'm not worried about the back-to-back with these Blazers starters. They all played like 24, 25 minutes last night. I think Dame's exact number was 27. Kanter against Robin Lopez, Mo Wagner, Alex Len, whoever else they find on the street to throw at him. What a fantastic matchup for him. And it's a great matchup for Dame. You've got Covington also, whose price is probably right for what he can do. And at 5'2", he's probably nothing more than, a 6.5x ceiling. But realistically, I think you're looking at Dame, you're looking at Kanter, and maybe you're looking at Covington here on the Blazers side. Trent at 6K. That's a pretty steep price, but then again, Washington doesn't defend guards, and if he gets hot from three, he didn't play a lot of minutes last night either. So on the Portland side, there's a lot of good matchups there. Dame is 10-7, so it's a decision point. You've got to really believe that he's going to have one of those 65, 70-point games tonight in order to pay up for that, as opposed to going down even to Westbrook in that same game or going over to some of the Clips guys. On the Washington side, I think it's Russ for me. I know there's this team is getting a little bit healthier, and some of these guys that play the forward positions are coming back, like Rui, and Rui's in a decent spot tonight against this Portland defense. But they do play a lot of guys now, and the other thing is Scott Brooks has been changing things up. Jerome Robinson and Isaac Bonga started, I think, every game last week, and they didn't play at all the other night. So it's an evolving situation in Washington where I want to be careful how deep I go. But I think the one guy that on the backup side might be Mo Wagner, because I think he's actually a decent player, and I think he can certainly tear up Harry Giles, just like Bobby Portis did last night.
Yeah, and we got John Myers in the chat. He agrees. He said Mo Wagner is another good value. So you got some chatters agreeing with you there, JT. Brian has a question, or not a question, but he said, love Kanter in these cake matchups. And then, so I'll ask the question to you, Big T. Do you like Kanter in these cake matchups? And the other thing I want to ask is, I heard JT mention Damian Lillard is going to be higher owned. I think he could be lower owned than people expect. Maybe I'm wrong, but I want to get your take on if people will spend up for Mr. Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting slate as far as ownership, because you got a lot of stars in high total spots where I'm not really sure how it falls. I mean, I know for sure people are going to play Westbrook. I think they want to play some Portland guys because of the total and some cheap guys. So it's just a matter of where it falls. like we said earlier, I think the ownership falls on this game for sure. I don't think people are going to play Kawhi and Paul George, and definitely not the Brooklyn guys. So really, it just falls on this game. I don't see how Dame doesn't come in high owned. I know he's expensive, but man, this total is huge against the Wizards. Everyone likes playing these guards against each other. Russ going against Dame. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I think that's the chalk pairing for sure for me. I think Beal will be the guy that definitely ends up low owned just because it's the same problem the Clippers have. Like, no one's going to play the two studs together, which I'm more on the Clippers side. But if I was playing Washington, I wouldn't be scared to play these two guys together. I know on the surface it feels like they can't both get there. But if this game totally shoots out and you have, just say you had Russ, you have Beal, and then maybe you go to Canner and some cheap guys and fade Dame, I think that's a nice combo that's going to be unique because literally no one's playing two stars together on this slate when you can play Dame the other way. They want to get that back and forth going. Technically, it's probably not – it doesn't correlate great, but when you factor that no one's going to have it but you, if they do all the damage, you're going to be very happy you got both of them.
Yeah, and like one reason I think you could see some of these guards losing some ownership is because Cole Anthony's on the slate, right? And he's a cheap guard that's going to have a lot of usages. People want to pay for Vucevic. People want to get Jaylen Brown in there because that position's a little shallow. So yeah, that's kind of like there's a lot of ways to go. There's so many different studs that you can spend up on.
It is a good slate. There's lots of ways you can go.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really fun one. Big T, you talked about Bradley Beal. What do you think of those value plays, like a Mo Wagner, right? Is he an interesting Wizards play that you can go to? I'm torn on those guys, like the Jerome Robinsons of the world. Like they get some kind of popping in those models, right? When you pull them up, you can see point per dollar. They make some sense, but I don't know exactly what to do with them here.
Yeah, Washington is interesting because they got a lot of dudes, like JT said. Mo Wagner the other night looked good. He was I think he tried to dunk on, who'd they play? He tried to dunk on KD or something, I think, if that's who they played in that. Yeah, he goes down the lane and just tries to hammer on him. He had a really good game, 3,800 on DK. I'm not interested at 48. It's kind of a similar problem to, who are we talking about? Kim Birch. I forget who we were talking about center, but it's annoying that he's only eligible at center because – man, if he was a power forward, I'd be all over him. You just hate using a center spot. But that being said, he looked really good, and the spot is really good. I mean, so say they play Wagner at the 5 and Canner's in there. Like, Canner has no chance to go to guard Mo Wagner. He's going to go right by him. So I think the matchup's really good to where you can play them off each other. Play Canner because the same thing. Mo's not going to be able to guard Canner either, so you could get a nice little back and forth. I think that a couple of these cheap pieces definitely crush for Washington. The hard part is, who's it going to be? If you're only playing one team, it's very, very hard for me to choose. If you're playing 150 or 20 or 50 teams, it's easy. Play a little bit of all these guys for the most part because even like Bertans, he's looked terrible. What happens if he goes out and hits 5 threes early, though? All of a sudden, he's going to be on the winner. He's going to build confidence. He's going to play more. So I don't think they correlate good. Like I wouldn't play Bertans and Mo Wagner together, but I think there's a really good chance that one of them ends up on the winner. Whoever gets it going early, whoever plays good.
Yeah, and if a guy like Bertans gets going from downtown, there's going to be the good mojo, right? Big T. Westbrook will be in his ear. He'll be saying, keep shooting, big fella. He'll tell him to keep putting it up there. And, he'll just keep firing away, and the ceiling will be, will basically be touched for. So that's kind of what would happen with Davis Bertans in that spot. I do think you mentioned Cantor and Wagner. If you play those two together, you're just going to be unique instantly because people are going to play Vucevic, right? They want to play Damian Lillard. They want to play Russell Westbrook. They want to play Cole Anthony as a cheap guard. And if you play all three of those guys, you lose your utility spot. You can't play two centers. So that's definitely something to look at, and I thought that was pretty good. JT, got any final thoughts on tournament strategies with this game? Because it's going to have some high ownership, and we have to be smart about how we roster these guys.
Yeah, the one thing that I'll say again about Washington is I think, looking at the last few games is not going to give you the greatest feel because they've been switching things up so much. Avdija came back last game. They said his minutes were going to be monitored. He played 16 minutes. So it is, for me at least, if I'm going to play one of the Washington guys other than Russ or Beal, I'm probably only going to play one of them in a lineup. I don't want to load up on a lineup with a bunch of Washington guys thinking these guys are cheap and they're going to smash because Portland's terrible, because I think the usage and the rotations there are still unpredictable with everybody coming back healthy, that Brooks is still figuring this out.
All right. Well, guys, we are at 235 likes. We got 530 of you watching. We need 15 more likes to give away that swag. I also want to talk about our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight. If you use the code RUNPURE, you get a $50 match deposit bonus. So head on over there, sign up, and get in on the Monkey Knife Fight winners. I actually put in a Monkey Knife Fight pick today that's in this game coming up. It's the Warriors and it's the Boston Celtics. And Big T, I'm going to head on over to you. Talk to me about this game. It's one that we got stars to play, right? We got Steph Curry. We got the Eric Pascal value. We have Draymond Green, your buddy, who you hate rostering. And then we got Tatum with no Marcus Smart. We got Jaylen Brown, who's got a decent price tag at 7.8K. Lots of guys you can roster. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that sticks out to me in this game is I don't really understand the spread, which maybe I'm just like way lower on Golden State than other people because I know they're above 500, but I genuinely think they're a terrible basketball team. Like, I don't think they're good at all. I think Boston, the way they play, I know yesterday I gave out the free winner on the show. I said Milwaukee would win by 30. They won by about 30. So this game looks just as easy to me in a different way. I don't see how Golden State keeps up with these guys. I know they got Curry, but I faded Curry all season. They match up so good to be able to match him a little bit, to double him like the teams have done all year. Run double, let Kemba guard him, but run doubles at him from other spots. It's just what they do. They got tons of pieces. And, yeah, Draymond, I mean, people keep playing him. He's fine, but they're even starting to get questions about him. Like, what's wrong, Draymond? Why aren't you doing anything? Yeah, because this isn't a good spot for him. He shouldn't ever be the second or third best player. He needs to be the fourth or fifth best and be a role player. And I love Draymond, but don't get me wrong. He's one of my favorite actual basketball players. But on this team with no shooting, Oubre, Wiggins has never been an incredible shooter. Kevon Looney. I mean, it just doesn't fit around Draymond. So I don't like him. Pascal, though, I mean, they're going to need Pascal to score. And the matchup is decent for Pascal tonight. So you have to take notice, and that's why he's going to be popular. He's going to be one of the most popular values on the slate. I think for good reason, though. It makes a lot of sense there. The Boston guys, though, I like them a lot. I mean, these prices look cheap. Even Tatum, no one's going to play Tatum at 86 and 9,500 on FanDuel. No one's paying that. But against Golden State, I think it's an interesting spot as they're missing Smart, like you said. Interesting boost up, and I think he's going to be super low owned. I kind of put him in that same bracket of Paul George and Kawhi, where I really like those three plays tonight. And Jaylen Brown, too. I do like Tatum more, but Jaylen Brown, I like him as well.
Yeah, I like Tatum a lot at the 8.6K price tag. I will say I looked up Curry's game logs against the Celtics. So I was worried. Brad Stevens is a smart defensive mind. And I saw Curry hasn't had the best games, but he had this one game where he had 69 fantasy points. And I kind of gave it a look. I went to that game. It was in 2018. Again, these players are a little different, but you know who didn't play in that game? Marcus Smart, right? I do think he is a big key defensive guy for them, where that's kind of causing this game to have a little bit of a closer spread. I'm with you though, Tony. I don't understand why it's a 2.5 spread. I almost went over to the bet side and put Celtics minus 2.5 as a bet today. I haven't done it yet. I got till 10, so maybe I'll put it in there. And someone's asking in the chat, James, he said, who's your all's best bet tonight? I think that's my best bet, Celtics minus 2.5. Is that yours too, Tony?
I like the Clippers a lot, too. I think the Clippers are going to show up tonight. Between the Kawhi and Paul George are going to want to make a statement. The good thing about I like betting games like this because it's a nice low spread. You can even just bet the money line, honestly, both sides, 2 and 1. Just get a nice. All you got to do is win. You don't have to worry about the spread. I think they both win. I feel very good about the Clippers. I feel very good about Boston. Boston is a little short-handed. I mean, maybe Gold. I just don't think Golden State's good. So, yeah, give me Boston.
Yep, I like Boston too. If you want to check out the stuff we got over at Run Pure Bets on the bet side, use the code BETS25 off. You can get in. And then also, if you're already a DFS subscriber, it's only $20 more to get into that. So check that out. JT, do you have a best bet for today, or you want to just give us all the DFS winners in this game?
No, I'm with Tony on the Clippers game. I think, the Nets are a team that I'm just not seeing that they all mesh together all that well just yet. They're going to score a ton of points, and when they take on inferior teams that can't defend, but we saw that against Washington the other night. They lost that game. They had a hard time. This is a team that defends well. I think I really do, because I'm going to have them in lineups. I do hope that this is a game where they let Ibaka get to 30 minutes, because if he gets to 30 minutes, he's going to get 60 points. He's going to get not 60 real points, 60 fantasy points. I think there was one game last year against Brooklyn where he played 22 minutes and got 55. So, if he gets run, and if Kawhi and PG play the way that I think they're going to play, I think this is more like a 5 or 6 point win, maybe even a little bit more than that. So I like the Clippers side as well.
Yeah, that's a great call there. Clippers should be in a pretty good spot. But talk to me about like Curry, right? Do you think he could have a big game? Is he a guard that maybe people won't spend on? And those Celtics guys, right? Like Tatum at 8'6", that's a tasty price tag. And Jaylen Brown at 7'8". I don't want to ignore that against the Warriors team that is not that great on defense.
Yeah. So if I'm the Celtics, I don't know why I would leave Curry open for a second, right? We've seen this with some of the sharper coaches where the minute that he gets the ball, 2 defenders roll up to him, because what's he got to do? He's got to pass to Wiggins. He's got to pass to Oubre. He's got to pass to someone that's going to chuck it up. So I don't like Curry at that price. If he was a little cheaper, maybe I'd be a little bit interested in, but I'm on the same side as you guys. When I saw that spread, I'm like, all right, I know Golden State just wiped Detroit, but Detroit is actually worse. So I don't quite understand it. Early in the day, I looked at Draymond and his 4.9 price on DraftKings, and I was like, all right, this is a spot you can play him. But the problem is his ceiling, he doesn't have that, or he hasn't had that 50-point ceiling that he's had in the past. So even at 4.9, let's say his ceiling is 30, 32, I'd probably rather take a shot on the value on Orlando and even a Pascal who's just 3.5 and get some of these better plays from the higher scoring games in my lineup. So I think it's Pascal for me on the Warriors, and that's about it. And then on the Celtics, again, it depends on what you think of this game. If you think it's a blowout, I think, yeah, you can play a guy like Robert Williams, who's the backup there and should have no problem. Feast at 5K is okay. And then I think Jalen's price is probably a little bit better than Tatum's, but definitely if it's competitive, Jalen and Tatum are going to have good games.
Before we get to the next game, Big T, I want to ask you a little strategy question, right? So I'm staring at Eric Pascal or Gary Clark. I can play either one. They're both good value plays, but one plays later, right? And you can make pivots later on if you happen to be dead. This is one of those slates where you have a nice little gap in between the games where you can understand if you're in or you're out or you're bubbling. Are you winning all the money? You can get on some chalk plays. What do you think of maybe getting exposure to the later values than the earlier values?
Yeah, I mean, it's always one of those things where you just gotta weigh it, how much you like each spot, how much you think something could open up. I don't know with this. Like, Gary Clark feels so solid to play 30-plus minutes for me, where Pascal, I do think he has upside, but he also has like a low minutes floor. Like, I think there's worlds where he doesn't even play 20 minutes or something. We've seen it happen a lot with Draymond in there, where he just doesn't seem to click with Draymond. Yeah, he's a great play. Again, I'm not saying he's a bad play at all. But if you think Gary Clark plays 30-plus minutes, from my perspective, I'm just going to lock my value in. Because with value, guys, I'm not necessarily looking for just insane upside on this slate because I want the studs anyways. My studs are going to be low owned. Kawhi, Paul George, Kyrie, guys like that are going to be low owned. Just lock me in for 20, Big Gare. Give me my 20 piece at 30, whatever you are, 3,200. I'll take my 20. Maybe Pascal goes for 25 or something later and I get burned. But I promise you, if Clark locks in the 20s, you're almost always going to be happy with just locking that in over waiting on Pascal because you just don't know. You don't know. Yeah, maybe he gets higher, but I'll always lock in the value when I can. If I loved Pascal, I'd have no problem waiting. But I do think Clark is way safer.
Yeah. What do you think of that one, JT, the strategy on that? Any reason to backload more?
No, I think we have to remember that the piece they're missing here in Wiseman is a 24-minute to maybe 28-minute a night guy. And so you've got now Toscano, who's back. Pascal's there. Looney's going to play his 15, maybe a few more minutes. In fact, that's actually what he said today, is that he expects to play a couple more minutes, but not a ton more minutes. And I think there's risk there. I think there's risk that if the game's not going well, he's going to swap people out pretty quickly, because those guys are really, they don't have a set role, right? On Orlando, they're so shorthanded. They were already shorthanded to begin with. Now they're missing a guy who they want to play in the 30s, another guy. So I just think it's a safer environment in Orlando than it is out in Golden State.
All right, Big T, I'll give you one more question on this game. Kevon Looney, I don't know if we talked enough about him. He's a value that's popping today, and I don't know what to do with. So I think he's okay, but I'm still torn on him. What's your thoughts?
So I almost trust this will definitely come across, I'm guessing, as a hot take, because he's going to be lower owned than Pascal for sure. I think he's a lot safer, honestly. I could see, you just look at their numbers. He has the ability to do more than he just gives you more stability. I mean, just look at his numbers. I know the ceiling. I would definitely, if you told me who has a higher ceiling, it's 100% Pascal. But if you ask me who gets me 20 points more likely, I think it's for sure Looney. I think he's way safer. I think his minutes are way safer. They trust him more. I mean, the dude's been in the finals with them in massive games. I don't mind Looney, and I think he's a really good pivot. I think you should, because what JT said, you take Wiseman out of there, one of these guys almost has to get there, even in a blowout. I don't think they correlate good, but the good part about it, you put, what are they, 34 and 35. You can, Looney is a center, though. We keep hitting that bug where dude is a center. I don't really want to use my value guy on a center. So
yeah, Tony, if you lock in a center spot with Vucevic, then you put the utility fee on center. Now you can only play 2 point guards, right? And there's a lot of good point guards on this slate. Like,
there's a lot of good guards on this slate too. Where I didn't think about that from Looney's perspective. It's really hard to lock a center up with Looney. I do think his floor is safe, and if you for some reason want to fade Vooch or something, then I don't hate it. It gives you a different build. This is what we always say. I mean, if everyone's playing Vooch and you're playing Looney and somehow Vooch even gets you 40, if Looney gets you 25, you have a different build and you're in really good shape.
Yeah, you wouldn't even need 25. You'd probably only need 20 because again,
anything really, because you have a different build. It's what your other guys are going to do.
Yep, I think that's a good call there. And we did get some news, surprisingly for an NBA show, not a ton of news has came by, but Norman Powell has gone from probable to questionable to doubtful to game time decision now. So he's hit every single tag today. JT, does that change anything for you? Are you monitoring this one? Is this big news that could change the slate for you?
I think you have to monitor it because obviously there's going to be a starter that replaces him. So you're going to have maybe a Terrence Davis again. I guess that's the guy that started last time. So you got to take a look at who else may be available. And then I would be more interested in a guy like Van Vliet, obviously, if Powell sat. But again, when we talk about the construction, then that changes how I'm going to build my whole team if I want to go up to 7-4 or down to 7-4 at one of those guard positions. So it definitely, like every night, makes it just a little bit more challenging to put together your rosters with Locke creeping up.
Yeah, and Terrence Davis at 4K would definitely be intriguing at the shooting guard spot. And Big T, I don't know if this changes the news for you, but if it does, is it Stanley Steamer season at 3.6K at the forward spot?
Definitely not Stanley Steamer season. Might be Brembry season. No, he treated me well the other day. I mean, he was 3K coming off. He got all the closing run 2 games ago, I believe, maybe 3 games ago, whatever it was now. And then he came back and was pretty good the next game at like 20 fantasy points. So these prices with Toronto, we can look back because Watanabe's been decent too. I mean,
that's your pivot though, by the way, Big T, off of a guy like Pascal, who his price is like 3.6. You can go 3.3 at the small forward or the shooting guard spot. And the other thing is he's guard and forward eligible. There's so many spots you can plug Bembry in. So that's a pretty good call there by him.
They seem to be building trust in him too, which for a value guy, that's big. I mean, how many minutes did he play the last game?
So I got Wannabes got 19 minutes and 24 minutes, and then Bembry, I believe it was 22 minutes and 18 minutes. So that's decent for the price tag.
And it was 18 and then 22, so he got an extra 4 after all the closing run. I mean, if he's 3,300 and he gets you 22 minutes, you're in decent shape here. So I like these early values. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna focus on these early values just to lock them in there.
JT, before we move to that last game, like Bembry, did Big T sell you on it? Because I think he's selling me a little bit.
Yeah, I just actually pulled him up because I hadn't considered him. I mean, obviously there's a lot of wild rotations early in the season, but Toronto's has been somewhat volatile, and I hadn't considered Bembry because he hadn't been playing any minutes whatsoever. And 2 games in a row, 18-22. And Bembry's a nice little player. He was in Atlanta, and he played well when guys sat, and he brought some energy to that second unit. So, yeah, if Powell is out, this may make it easier because you could look at Bembry, you could look at maybe one of the values in the Washington-Portland game, and then you should be all right.
Hey, Bembry treated me well at Temple. I'm sure he treated Big T well at Temple. He was a beast when he played college basketball there. And hopefully he can treat me well tonight if we get this news that shakes our way. Guys, please hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're going to give away the swag at the end of the show. We've hit the 250 mark, so but please keep hitting that like and subscribe. It helps us out. Let's go to the final game of the day. And, oh, man, this is kind of a brutal one. I don't really know what to do with this. I know on FanDuel, you got Jeremy Grant. He is cheap over there at the small forward position, but it's the Pistons and the Utah Jazz. Big T, the Jazz are healthier. The Pistons kind of suck. What are you doing here with this game? Is it a full-on fade?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how I could consider it on this slate. That's what I like about this slate, though. It's 6 games. Even if some people roster a few guys in here, still soaks up some ownership, and I just don't see it. So what happened with Detroit last night? So what, they just had an inconclusive test and canceled the game. Now they're good for sure.
I forget who had it. I don't know if it was Detroit with the test or Denver, but someone had an inconclusive test. And they're like, we're running tests all day. And there is some fear, right? Of like, if you do roster a guy in this game, like, well, you have the salary to go up. Like, if you play Jeremy Grant, right, you can't go up to Jaylen Brown. Like, so like, you have to have another spot open maybe to make some pivots. And that's definitely something when you're building out your lineups, I think you should look at. Wouldn't you agree?
Especially when the game's this ugly anyways. Like, honestly, I'm just pretending it's not there. And I'm hoping that something happens random where it gets canceled or something. Then people just pivot. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just pretending it's not there. But there has to at least be some percentage that the game gets canceled or something, right? Like, it just got canceled last night because of an inconclusive. I'm not saying it's going to happen, so listen to how I'm saying it, but there has to at least be a percentage, and the game is ugly anyways. Utah should, coming off a loss, like GT said, they just got embarrassed by the Nuggets. I'll be stunned if they don't blow out Detroit tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of with you. The only problem is Jeremy Grant is cheap on FanDuel, man. Like 6'8", he's 7K. He's
been kind of sucking though. Like,
he's just not making shots. I mean, it's.
Well, that's Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, it has not been Jeremy Grant this year. He has been like Michael Jordan the way he's been bad. Yep, it's tough, especially if you have to play 2 small forwards on FanDuel, man. Like, it is a little different over there. JT, what about you? Like, how are you handling this Detroit Utah game? Is it like a full-on fade, or are you trying to get some exposure?
No, I'm not actively trying to get some exposure. If one of my last roster spots comes down to one of these guys, I think I'll remake my roster just because I agree. I think this is going to be an ugly game. Now, Grant looks cheap. He looks cheap because when the Pistons were missing all those guys, he had this insane usage rate, and he put up these huge games because he was playing 38, 40 minutes, and it was against really terrible teams, and he was having good games. He's down at 7K on DraftKings. I looked at it. I said, wow, that's pretty cheap. He could, but realistically against a team like Utah, his ceiling is probably 40. And on this slate, that's probably not enough in, where we have these higher price games and where I think that there's a really good possibility that Jeremy Grant ends up playing 27 minutes because the game is over by the middle of the third quarter.
Yep, agree with you on that. We got people in the chat, they're laughing at you saying, I think I'll remake my roster. And listen, if you are thinking of remaking your roster, be sure to tune into JSU, right? You got to tune into JSU and Holden. They will help you remake your roster if you're landing on a Piston or Jazz player that you don't want to have in your lineup. They will be on for the premium show at 6:15 doing the final countdown. So check that out. Be sure to tune in. Use the code Workbench21 to get 25% off your first payment to check out that premium show. We got some news from Justice Jones. He says Powell is in. I'm going to just confirm right now. Yeah, we got confirmation from some beat writers. So I guess that takes away the Bembry idea, right, Big T?
Yeah. I mean, if Powell's in, you definitely can't play those other guys because he's going to play a bunch of minutes. Honestly, I'm probably happy about it. I didn't really trust that spot all that much. I still would rather – we didn't talk a ton about Nasir Little, but the dude was a stud in college, or at least he was projected to be a stud. He's a super athlete in this matchup. He's going against Washington. He's 3,100. He's 3,500 at that same small forward you talked about on FanDuel. I love when a position is really ugly like FanDuel, 3,500, just punting to 3,500. And even if he gets you like 15, you're okay because the position's so ugly. Like when Jeremy Grant gets 27 and Jaylen Brown gets 34, you're in really good shape with Nasir Little getting 15 because of all the other studs on the slate. You got, I mean, even a guy like James Ennis is 3,600. I know these plays are very, very ugly. It's just FanDuel, and the position is so ugly. Like, you play those guys, it's what it gets you in other spots where I just don't want to tie up $7K in salary or 8,700 with Jaylen Brown, really. Pascal's 83. I mean, on our cash sheet, I mean, I don't – who does Hoop do, the FanDuel or you?
Hoop does the FanDuel. I do the DK.
It says Justin Holiday on there, and I don't know what to think. I mean, whew.
Maybe Titletown stepped in there to put the Justin Holiday play in. I don't know.
Justin Holiday.
So I think I can explain that. I think he may be a bit popular, is why he's on. Also, you've got the Memphis is bad against the small forward position. My issue with playing him is that you've got three guys that are all going to take away from each other, and I think that the game is going to be slow and ugly. But he looks like he's going to be popular. I did some runs earlier, and he was coming in most of my builds. I did that little X button.
Yeah, that's what I always. Whatever the guy keeps popping, and I know I don't want him, I just get right in there and click that X button. Don't show up anymore.
It's probably the idea too of like, hey, like you're trying to just punt the position because the position's not the greatest, right? And you can't you can punt it, but you can't be like, hey, let me go play like, I don't know, Semi Ojeleye. Like he can't be playing Semi Ojeleye, right? Like, so maybe that's why Holiday is popping a bit more. We're getting to that time of the show, Big T. We got to talk about it. If you're a first timer here watching this show, Big T hits you with the workbench play of the day. This is a guy that he's going to be overweight on his lineups. It's his play of the day. It could be a really cheap guy. So he's not saying that guy's going to go for 1 million fantasy points. He's just saying it's going to have that flame next to him, his name at the end of the night. He's saying that it's going to hit the salary. At the end of the night, you're going to be happy because it's going to be on the winning lineup and help you to get all those guys. So, Big T, I'm sure the graphic's up. I'm sure I'm trying to peek through the window. I'm sure JT's peeking through. Give us the full picture. What are we doing with the workbench play of the day?
When are we getting JT's Eiffel Tower play?
I guess we should go to the Eiffel Tower first, probably. But
I mean, you go first.
That's on me. I made a mistake. So
we got to get the Eiffel into play.
Fair enough. I was pitching a good game.
We're on a roll, too. On this Tuesday show, Hoop always does the golf on Tuesdays. I think we've been all over the workbench and the Eiffel Tower, so we got to keep it going.
Yeah, we got to keep it going. I was pitching a good game. I just gave up a solo shot. Don't pull me yet, Coach. I can close the game out strong. JT, Eiffel Tower play. You teased it might not be Damien Lillard, but maybe that'll change. Give me your Eiffel Tower play.
No, I like Dame, but I agree. I think that game is going to see a ton of ownership. And like we talked about, this game in Brooklyn is going to see, it's going to see probably a fifth of the ownership. And I think there's some great plays. I just looked. It looks like Rudy Gobert is going to be 20% owned, which may be a little high, but that seems crazy to me. This guy's a risk. So I want to be clear with this. These aren't like, cash plays. This is a GPP play that I am going to have in my lineup that I think is a really good play. This guy that I'm looking at is 3% owned. He has the absolute best matchup at his position. Even in 22 minutes last season against the same team, he went for 55 DraftKings points. Serge Ibaka, Eiffel Tower play of the day.
All right, Mr. Serge Ibaka for the Eiffel Tower play. I'm sure we just saw JT with the mustache there. That graphic was incredible the first time I saw it. Big T. So now we're at the window. We need the full peek behind the paywall here, the curtain. Give me the workbench play of the day.
The best part about the workbench play is like 90% of the time I just free roll it here at the end or like I don't ever have it planned and I just go with whatever feels right. Tonight I'm leaning towards for sure this Clippers game. Paul George, Kawhi, Kyrie the other way, 3 contenders, Serge. I love the Eiffel Tower play. Man, I was fully committed to about 5 minutes ago to going to my boy Sweet Lou. I was feeling good about it. And now right as I'm getting ready to do it, when I talked about the Eiffel Tower, we needed to get it. Nicholas Batum is ruled in. I was kind of hoping he was going to sit out. Man, I don't know if I can. I still like Lou. I'm still going to have him. But like always, I want the workbench to get it done on this show because I take pride in it. I'm going to circle back, and I don't always give a stud in this spot, but it's going to be a low-owned stud. He's not going to be 10% owned for sure. Paul George and Kawhi are both – Kawhi's like easy on FanDuel because the small forward, so you play him. But Paul George is going to be the workbench play of the day today. He's going to get you 60. He's going to crush. And like always, I like the correlation with the Eiffel Tower. We get in there. Maybe we go back-to-back a little bit here. It's what happens on this show. I like it. Hopefully we're in the winner's circle later today. Paul George going to get it done with Serge by his side.
Well, Big T, it's crazy you say that. Like I said to Simon before the show, and I have a living proof. I have someone. They can't say I'm stealing your play. I was like, I think Paul George is my favorite play of the day because spending up at shooting guard. Like I'm on the bench with you, Tony. Like
that's how this show's supposed to be. All 3 of us are allowed to be in there. Simon, let him in the room. Open the window.
Yeah, let me in there. Give me. I can take 10% of the bed, small spoon or something. No big deal. So get me in there. I love Paul George. I like spending up at your shooting guard spot. I don't think it's the greatest spot, but that's my favorite play of the day. You will see him on my main tournament team. That'll wrap it up.
That's chalk, T. What do you mean that's chalk? That's
it's not chalk. That is not chalk. I will bet my whole bankroll and not play today and literally bet that he is not chalk. So.
Even say we're wrong and he's like, the absolute highest he could possibly be is like 20 at the absolute highest. That's still not chalk in NBA.
No, and I want to add this. I like George as well. I was considering him for the ET play, but I wanted to go just a little lower owned than him.
So the Serge call was even better.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier. He's a lock on FanDuel, just a straight lock. Don't even think about it.
No, it's rare you get like good, really juicy 241 totals with studs that just are not going to get played as much. So, sure.
Daniel Deckard is not winning the gear today. Big chalk knee house. That is not the way to warm my heart.
Yeah.
Is he just trolling or is come on.
I have no idea.
Bad mojo. We don't need bad mojo in here.
We don't need the bad mojo. We do have to pick a winner. I almost got off the show.
It's not going to be him.
It will not be him. Let me look for a quick winner here. I will go with let's go with one of the recent guys talking about one of these plays.
FanDuel, Paul George will be over 50%, he said.
No.
Listen, let's give it to Sylvester Payne, right? All his comment is he says Sweet Lou, and anyone that has the cojones to roster Sweet Lou today or even talk about him, man, they are worthy of some swag, right? They are a guy that's trying to get the workbench playing and trying to ship a GPP. So Sylvester Payne, you are the winner of the swag, but we got to go. We have to make some room for JSU and Holden. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the Run Pure Sports Hardwood Show. For me, Mangone, JT Hayes, and Big T. See you guys later.